We're recording. And hello. This is another episode of Join My Pyramid Scheme. Oh, almost knocked over my laptop there. Try to get this thing balanced. I gotta sit in a kind of a funny angle because it's just resting on top of my couch here. Um, I got hooked up by the Hyatt when I checked in. I am staying in, this is so government rate lodging. But they put me in a corner room here. So I've got this nice common area where I've got a big wraparound U-shaped couch and a big screen TV, king size bed. Probably as much square footage. No, it's more. It's more square footage than my camper here in this hotel room. So I might have been able to bring Nicole and the kids, but I don't know if that would have been much fun for anyone. But anyway, here I am alone in Virginia. Tonight I'm sipping on Liberty Creek Vineyards Pinot Grigio, um, just some gas station wine. I went over to the Wawa, which is walking distance, uh, like literally just on the other side of the parking lot from the hotel, and got me a couple little wood, yeah, like cardboard bottles of this wine. And it turns out there's three glasses of wine in each bottle, so I might have only needed one, but anyway, here I am on the last of my second bottle. I was watching Downton Abbey, and normally I wait until the end of the podcast to talk about like what to read and what to watch. But um, yeah, I was watching an episode of Downton Abbey, and they started pouring some wine, and it just looked good. So all of a sudden, I got thirsty and decided that I wanted to go over to go get some. I was hoping for like a dark red wine, but instead I got this Pinot. But that's when you're going to a gas station, you get what you can. They had a good selection of beer, but beer it has appealed to me less and less over the years because I don't want to deal with the indigestion. So anyway, sipping on some wine. Did an episode and a half of Downton Abbey this evening, and I've watched Olympic reruns. There's not much to do in this hotel room. But I'll go over everything that I've done in the last week, and then everything that Nicole and I've done since we caught up on the last episode of the podcast. It'll be hard to describe everything because we don't get a lot of podcast episodes in while we're in Colorado, and it's hard to do because there's constantly something going on. And every time I go back home, I always have plans to do a lot more than what I actually end up doing. But it's because there just isn't the same kind of downtime. And even if there is downtime, there's things that I want to be doing in that downtime. I would love to just have perfect weather every time I go back home to ride horses, to eat at every restaurant in Lamar and Syracuse and Grenada that I want to hit. But a lot of the time I find myself not even wanting to go into town when I get back. One thing that's kind of strange, I feel kind of weird. Like the I refer back to the Cody Canada or the Cross Canadian Ragweed song 17 all the time because it is like you're always 17 when you're in your hometown. And I still feel that in a big way. I would think that I would like in my mind it's like, The Boys Are Back in Town by Bachman Turner Overdrive is playing, and it just feels awesome to be back. But I don't know, it's kind of weird because it's not like that because I feel like um, I kind of feel like a stranger who's showing up there because I've been away from it all for so long. And it is cool to run into people, but it's kind of I don't know, you kind of feel like an outsider a little bit because you don't know what the talk of the town is. And I don't know, you kind of have to like you have to learn who people are all over again. I've I've talked about interactions I've had before, but there's people who I did not care for whenever I was in high school who turned out to be really cool people. And you can't hold against, how someone acted when they were 16, 17 years old and really hormonal. You can't hold it against them. And I don't know. I don't know if people like maybe I'm concerned about going back home and people think that they're talking to like 16, 17-year-old Kyle. Um, yeah, that's the same guy, but there's I don't know, everybody grows and there's a lot of maturing that takes place, and so you kind of feel like you have to feel people out all over again. That's kind of strange, but that's why the best friends in your life, you don't have to do that. You always know you can pick right up where you left off, and I think that's why Nicole and I have stayed such good friends with our friends from college, because we we were kind of at a point in our lives where we really did learn um, who we were, and we worked harder to feel out the people around us and to kind of decide what kind of people we associated with. So it's interesting when you haven't lived in your hometown for you know over 6 years or so, and then you go back. I I'd be interested to hear what anyone else thinks. Maybe if I was doing this on Instagram Live, maybe I could get some answers on that. But that's me. That's what I think about it. I don't know what anyone else's take is. I'd be interested. I don't care that much though. Anyway, so yeah, we were back. Um, Wheat harvest came way later than it normally does. I've never seen wheat harvest go all the way into late July, and that was strange. And it kind of threw off our plans a little bit because we thought that we'd get done with harvest while we were there and then have a little bit of time to hang out on the back end, but it was the opposite of that. And it was a lot of downtime in the beginning, but also kind of not really wanting to get too far away because wheat harvest might happen and you don't want to be away when that wheat is ready to cut. But one thing I was thankful for, I got to go check cows every morning for like the first 2 weeks, and got to got to quiz my mom about everything ranching, because my goal is still to get back and ranch. So I kind of see it as an opportunity. Like when I'm back in Colorado, I really feel like I need to try to soak up as much knowledge about ranching as I can. And if there's anyone who I think has done it really well, it's my mom. So I I've got to pick her brain about things and ask her questions and figure out what kind of what I need to be thinking about whenever I get back to it. And of course, looking outside the box, um, going and seeing how other people do things too. So while I was back, of course, we went and visited the Candas, and always cool to kind of see like what they're doing with their cattle and how all of that works. It's different, and I still don't know a whole lot about it, but they're they're raising their cattle in like up in the mountains, so it's it's a different ecosystem. That's what it is. Like same state, you can be there in a matter of about 3.5 hours, but the ecosystem is totally different because of the altitude and the rainfall and the type of plants that are growing in the Wet Mountain Valley versus the Eastern Plains. So it's fun for me to learn about that too and see another way of doing things. And I also went and moved some cattle with my cousin Caleb, and what he's doing is he's raising registered red Angus cattle. Um, and and honestly, most of his operation is very different from my family's. You know, he does as much of it on horseback as he can. He likes to freeze brand. He artificially inseminates his cows and his heifers, and he also doesn't doesn't castrate a lot of them. So he'll castrate the ones that he doesn't want to sell as bulls, but everything else gets to keep the family jewels on him. So yeah, it was a good time getting to go out and to to move cattle with him and to get a little more saddle time. I think I rode I rode 4 or 5 different horses in the time that I was back in Colorado. Um, one of those trips was a ride on this mountain trail. So I'll talk a little more about when we went to Westcliff. But yeah, second time that we made it back to Westcliff for the Fourth of July parade, and if I don't take a sip here or there, I'm gonna have a full glass of wine in my hand whenever I finish this thing. Still, but we've been to the Fourth of July parade in Westcliff before. We were back again this time, and if you've seen the series Yellowstone, that is pretty relatable in a few different senses. And one of them is that Westcliff kind of feels like it's becoming one of those mountain tourist towns. And in the time that I've learned about it, I have definitely seen the way it has become more and more of a tourist destination during the summer. When I go in the winter, it's all the same people, not all the same businesses are open. But, I like in the winter it's cool because I get to hang out with a lot of the locals, people that I met the very first time I went there. During the summer, it gets a little crazy. It gets weird. That scene from like season one, episode one or episode two of Yellowstone, where Casey and his son are sitting outside that ice cream place talking about transplants, and you look around and you see all these like city people that are there outside that same ice cream place. That could have been filmed in Westcliff because that there's an ice cream place just like it, and that main street looks just like that during the summer. But yeah, but during the winter, I don't know if that ice cream place is even open, and it's not the same people in that town. It's the population is probably half. But anyway, um, so we're there for the Fourth of July parade, and it's awesome because you can tell where the locals are because they all cheer whenever Mark's dad, Colonel Kanda, rides by because he's one of the county commissioners, and and the people in that county are pretty thankful for what he's done because he has actually kind of fought against the state trying to mandate everybody wearing masks at all times. And he's tried to let people make decisions for themselves and let businesses make decisions on behalf of their business. And the people in Custer County appreciate that. So pretty cool to see everybody cheering for Colonel Kanda as he's riding down Main Street on his horse. Uh, so Daniel Kanda, who is um, Dan Kanda, the priest's son, he rode from the church there in the cliff back to the Silver Dome, which it's pretty much across town. But anyway, he crashed into a ditch and he hit his shin on a pipe that was in there, but it kind of got blown up a little bit bigger than what it needed to be. And the like, so he was on a four wheeler. I don't know if I said that, but the kids rode four wheelers. So yeah, Daniel was on a four wheeler in the parade, his little brother Payson was driving uh, the little Polaris Ranger that they've affectionately named Jean Girard from Talladega Nights. He was driving that with a whole bunch of kids and me in it. And so Daniel rode that four wheeler down to the ditch and they took him down to Pueblo in the ambulance. And I'm sure his mom gave him an earful over that whole thing whenever they got to the hospital. But that all kind of got blown up. So it was already just kind of a typical crazy um, summer in the Wet Mountain Valley because every now and then an ambulance does get involved. That's just kind of how things go from time to time. But it yeah, probably talked about this a little bit whenever this was Let's Have a Drink podcast. But we had some wild times back in uh, back in Westcliff and Silvercliff. So anyway, the next generation of Candle Boys, they're carrying on that legacy. All that got taken care of. A couple days after the parade, we well, Mark's cousin Robert was camping up in the mountains. Told us to go catch him on the trail that he was on. Venable Lake is his destination. So I was planning on getting back home. Was not going to be able to stay overnight because we need to get back to wheat harvest. It ended up raining in southeast Colorado, so that bought us a little bit of time before we had to head back. But that morning, Robert was already on his way up the mountain, and Mark and I grabbed a couple horses, got them saddled up, threw some slices of pizza in our saddlebags and some water, and grabbed some coats, and we headed up that way too. And we expected rain, but maybe not the way that it came in. Gorgeous ride going up the trail. It, you know, it was really nice. Didn't see a whole lot of people headed up. We saw like two guys probably from Fort Carson that were on their way up, and most of the people we saw were on their way down. And there was this one kind of older hippie looking woman who says to Mark, "You were in the parade." And the whole interaction just cracked me up because neither of us are full time cowboys. We get to be cowboys maybe 2 weeks out of every year if we're lucky. And he's riding the same horse that he rode in the parade, wearing the same hat, going up that trail. And in this woman's eyes, this just verified everything she could have hoped to think about some random cowboy riding in this parade. But in her mind, she's probably like, "Oh, they do this every day. They probably like got a herd of sheep up here in these mountains." I don't know what Californians think, but it made the whole thing seem pretty legit because there's Mark riding up this trail on just a random day on horseback, and me riding there with him, and it's the same guy that was riding a horse in parade. So it verified that these horses don't just get broken out for Fourth of July and they hang out in the pasture the rest of the time. But anyway, I thought that was pretty funny. So we keep on riding up there and we catch Robert maybe uh maybe a mile or less away from the lake. And he was pretty worn out at that point because he's backpacking it. He's got everything from his tent that he's going to stay in and his sleeping bag all the way down to his pistol on him. And so we catch him, and I realized the second that I dismounted that yeah, it wasn't that easy just hiking up this thing. But all three of us were dismounted. Robert grabbed onto Rebel's tail, and old Rebel helped pull him on up the rest of the way while carrying his pack. Also, Rebel was carrying Robert's pack. That is, but we get to the top, and Robert picks a spot right at the top of this hill, that overlooks the valley. You can see Westcliff and Silver Cliff perfectly from up there. And I think me and Mark both kind of like we questioned his choice and placement because I just figured that wind was going to come right up from underneath his tent and give him trouble all night long. But it sounds like he got a pretty good night's sleep after all. So choosing his campsite for the view might have panned out. But yeah, I managed to get a quick 5 minute swim in the lake while we were up there, and it was cool. Beautiful view, but we were up there for all of 20 minutes until the storm clouds rolled in. Robert was camping. He stayed there. We left him some water, gave him another slice of pizza, and we got out of there, which kind of sucked. We were hoping to get to hang out a little bit longer because we were scoping out wildlife up on the next peak over. But the two Fort Carson guys that were hiking up there, they were up in that same area. Hopefully, I think they got the tent set up right before the storm rolled in. Robert's tent was already set up, so they were sheltered in place. And me and Mark rode down that trail as fast as we could. And the thing is, we hit down trees on our way up there, trees that were blocking the path. Not the horses weren't able to get over all of them, so in some places we had to go off the trail and skirt around them. And there were some of them that we just flat had to get the horses to jump over, and they weren't easy to get over. I had to dismount to get Cam. No, I was not Cam. I was on Mac. Yeah, to get Mac to jump over these down trees, and we're getting rained on, we're getting hailed on, and the whole time I'm thinking, man, if I hadn't been through worse experiences, like thanks to the army and thanks to my own like poor planning at times, it would not have been fun. But it is, and that's the thing. Some of the most miserable experiences at the time are pretty fun and pretty cool in hindsight, just because of kind of like what you push through. And is a little scary in the sense that there was lightning coming down. Um, when it comes to lightning, that's just uh, you don't know where a lightning bolt's gonna come from. You know, that's one of those things where if you worry about it, then you worry about too much in life because that's up to the Lord. If He's gonna hit you with a lightning bolt, then it could have been today or it could have been 20 years from now. But there's only so much you can do to control that sort of thing. So anyway, yeah, lightning all around us, within a mile for sure, and hailstones just pelting our hand. Like the only skin we had exposed was our left hands because those are on the rain, and I think we both had our right hands in our pockets, so we wouldn't keep getting hit by hail. But you had to laugh through the whole thing because you you can't imagine much worse weather to roll in than that. And we we had to ride through most of it. It got nice and sunny as soon as we got to the trailhead, and that's just how it goes. The weather's not going to clear up until you're finally back safe and sound, and where it doesn't matter anymore. But it's just fun, you know. And there's I definitely could not feel like I don't think I compared um, to the guys who ranch every day and who do things traditionally, who break out their horse every time they got a doctor or calf, and who put in that work. Like I'm no cowboy whenever it comes to uh, comparing myself to those dudes, but man, I feel like a cowboy whenever I'm riding through a storm and trying to get an unwilling horse to jump over down trees and everything else. And back to Yellowstone, that scene where they're talking about all the billionaires that this guy knows and how all of them would love to be cowboys. But that's something that we talked a little bit about too. Is just in our country, I really think that is that like admirable symbol Um, there's no there's nobody more American and more admirable for men than the American cowboy who came before us and the men who, you know, survived weather and Indians and the elements again and everything else that it affects a man trying to survive in desolate areas than the American cowboy. But so so what I'm saying is that we hope that we still kind of embody the spirit of those men, and you feel like you get a taste of it whenever you're out just doing cowboy stuff. So I'll move on from there. Um, yeah, had a blast in Westcliff. It's great to be surrounded by friends. Loved having Lindsay and Nicole and Sarah together again. Just good women who all build each other up and who I think, you know, better each other. And if there's anything I like that I hope my daughter has in her future, it's friends who make her a better woman, you know. And that's what I think the three of those ladies do. They all work together, and it's very very admirable. I love seeing it, you know. And it's the same thing whenever we went and we visited Carrie up in Marshall, Virginia. You know, I'm looking around and like I'm seeing Nicole and Jessica Poose like doing dishes together, and I'm just like, man, this is cool. You know, just seeing women naturally do do like womanly things, and I think it's so like so admirable. I'm so glad to see what kind of role models my daughter has, and you know, and then for us guys, like I love getting a chance to hang out with Ben and Dan and Mark all at the same time, and of course the Colonel, because it's a very very intelligent, educated bunch, and um, and a crowd where we all share principles. Like, of course, they're going to because they're all family, but I definitely feel like I'm a part of it, just with their hospitality, the way they bring me in, and how like minded we all are. But yeah, Westcliff was a blast. While we're back on the farm, days when we weren't harvesting wheat, spent a lot of time swimming in the pool. It was so cool. Lily is swimming without any sort of flotation device. She's jumping off the diving board. She's real confident and she loves it. Billy Bob's working on it too. Uh, Tom's working on it. There for a while, Tom was freaked out whenever his feet couldn't touch, even though he he had his little puddle jumper on. But now he's fine with going out and just kind of floating on his own. So the boys are doing a great job in the swimming pool. They're very comfortable in the water, which is cool because we go to the beach so often, and I think the ocean has kind of helped them ease into it. You know, the waves do a good job at encouraging kids not to venture out too far. It They give them some encouragement to stay at a level that they're comfortable with, but eventually they build confidence. So yeah, we had a blast. Spent a lot of time in the swimming pool. Didn't hit a whole lot of great restaurants, but one of them we're real excited about. There's a restaurant coming to the Cow Palace called the Dish Room. So we got to go see the one that is in Burlington already, and that was delicious. Great restaurant. Nicole and I were both surprised by really attractive people working there, the wait staff. And it sounds weird to be saying this, but if you don't understand how a small town works, but having like a really nice restaurant isn't necessarily that common of a thing in a small town. We had Chez W. Duval in Grenada. that was one of the like odd exceptions. And the dish room is going to be the same way in Lamar. Uh, all of a sudden, you have this like nice restaurant, but yeah, in Burlington, I think that's a lot of like the community college students were probably working there because there would just be like people who didn't look like they quite belonged in Burlington, Colorado. Because Burlington's it's about like Lahana, except it's got interstate going through. But yeah, we're excited about that restaurant coming in. I'd hoped to make it out to the Black Bison out in Syracuse. Never got around to that. It's just kind of funny. I didn't care to go into Lamar a whole lot. I wanted to be as far away from a paved road as possible, and I kind of stayed that way the whole time. Um, and I'm glad that I did because I really love just being out there on the farm and everything that we have to do out there because it's all unique to that place for me. I can't get a similar experience anywhere else. I can't get an Airbnb on somebody's guest ranch and and experience the same thing because I know that land, and if I want to drink a six pack of beer and go shoot at rabbits, I can do that and it's okay because I know like I know there's nobody out there. I know where it's safe to cut loose a little bit. But yeah, I miss it as I'm talking about it. And I've been away for a week, but the kids clearly love it out there. It's great being able to take them out and go check cows, being able to go harvest all grain. That's what my job was throughout harvest was driving the truck. I put the Nintendo 64 in there like I have in previous years. So me and the kids are able to play some Mario Kart, play some Super Smash Bros. While we're waiting on the truck to fill up with grain. Hauled all of our grain to Grenada feeders this year, which is okay except for the fact that they don't unload the truck for you like they do with the grain elevator. So I did have to get dusty every time I went to unload my truck, but it was cool. Hauled all the kids around. And at I had one point I had three kids. No, I don't think I had a full house in that truck. I had Grandma Donna, I had at least one of the big kids, and I had Tom with me. So that, yeah, my truck was getting a little bit crowded, but it was cool. I love that Donna feels comfortable coming out and hanging out with us during harvest, and being out at my parents' place. She's such an easy house guest to host because she just doesn't need a whole lot of anything. Doesn't give us any extra work to do, you know, and does give us some quality conversation. But I had a blast getting a chance to show her a little bit more of the country and tell her a little bit more about my family's history because that is so important and so personal to me. And a big reason that that place has so much meaning to me is because of the generations of my family who dreamt of having that sort of thing. And it starts with Thomas Hartshorne, who back in the 1630s decided that he wanted that freedom from the monarchy and came to America for it. And I believe that he would just be thrilled to learn that his descendants would, well, of course, his descendants are doing all sorts of great things because he's got many of them, and there's Hartshorns all over this country thanks to him. But I think he would be thrilled to know that someday he has descendants in Colorado who have a successful farm and ranch and that it has kept up with the times and with the technology and everything that changes. So it has a lot of meaning to me in that sense. And I know everything that was sacrificed. Like I've read my family history, every generation since we came to America, and that's why it has so much meaning to me to know what was given and who died along the way and how much blood, sweat, and tears. I could never know really how much it is, but I can only imagine all the blood, sweat, and tears that went into getting to where we are today. And that's kind of why I feel that obligation to carry it on and to make something for my descendants. But I got I got to share more of that with my mother-in-law, and that's that's a great thing. You know, I love being able to share that with anyone and to kind of like help her understand like what her daughter and I think of whenever we think of our future. So anyway, I flew out of Colorado the same day that Donna did. Both flew out of Colorado Springs, and then I got back to Columbia, South Carolina. Turn on my phone, and I've got text messages from Nicole saying, "Oh no, I have the keys." So my whole plan I had from the 15th of July to the 25th of July to just run free. I've got no house in South Carolina, no place to stay. I left an air mattress and some other items in the expedition, which was parked on Fort Jackson, so I could live out of the expedition when I got back here. And then I didn't have the keys to the expedition, so I get back, get an Uber to Fort Jackson from the airport, and Drill Sergeant Morales was on staff duty at the time. She drove me to a hotel at like 2 in the morning. I checked into a hotel for 2 nights in there in Columbia. Not a great hotel, but I had no way of getting around. So I had a pizza delivered to me while I was staying there and ended up we paid for overnight shipping for the key for Nicole to send the keys here to South Carolina. They were supposed to show up Saturday by noon, and then we found out they were going to show up till Monday by noon. And it just wasn't going to work because a hotel was expensive enough. We would be better off just to call a locksmith and have a duplicate key made. And that's what we did. $260 to have a duplicate key made. But it ended up being worth it. So now I got another key to the expedition, and my um my actual key finally showed up over at our friend Tim Stokes' house, but I was already long gone by the time he got it. So once I got that key made for the expedition, the first thing I did was I drove to Myrtle Beach, and I kind of walked around the boardwalk just a little bit. I'd planned to go uh, to hear a band play at the Bowery, which was like a country bar, and I'd kind of decided against that. I decided I was going to go watch the UFC fights over at Buffalo Wild Wings instead. So that's what I did. I drove to Buffalo Wild Wings, um, had a few beers, and ate some wings, watched fights, and then decided I didn't want to just keep drinking expensive beer at Buffalo Wild Wings. So I went over the expedition, blew up my air mattress, laid down, watched the rest of the fights on on my cell phone in the back of the expedition, and then fell asleep until like 2 a.m. that night. Um, Woke up sober enough to drive, and then drove to like a a wall. Yeah, drove to a Walmart parking lot a little ways away from where the free beach parking was. So free beach parking started at 6 a.m. So I slept until 5:45 at the Walmart parking lot, and then 5:45 got up, drove to the beach, parked in the free beach parking, took my surfboard out, and there was like no surf. I ended up hanging out on the beach for a total of like 2 hours, just chilling there. Um, and then decided that there weren't going to be any waves. It wasn't going to be worth it. So I went ahead, packed my surfboard up, and I don't know where I went from there. I think, yeah, I might have just gone back to a Walmart parking lot or something. But anyway, I was parked somewhere. I was on my phone, and I was just looking at what was going on in the area, like looking at concerts. I found out Jamie Johnson and Whiskey Myers were playing in Charleston. So I didn't even give that any second thought. I bought my tickets right then, and it was at Eastern Coast, yeah, Coastal Eastern Coastal Carolina College. I was parked in their parking lot getting some more sleep, and I found out about that concert. So I drove down to Charleston and went um, to the Air Force Base there, to their little RV park. Parked my car there for a while, and I was gonna try to do some grilling. Found out I was out of propane, so I just used the restrooms that were at their campsite, and um, and then I headed over to where the concert was happening. I thought people would be tailgating. It'd just be a good chance to like hang out, be surrounded by some people, maybe make some friends, drink some beers. And I was like one of three cars in that parking lot. And I see everybody who like parks there is just like headed to other places. So I have like one or two parking lot beers. I'm looking on my phone and I see that there's a brewery down the road. I was like, all right, that's where I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go maybe get a bite to eat and go like have one of their fancy beers. I go down there and like the way I dress normally, I'm a little out of place because I kind of dress Western. So just standing in line to get beers, ended up talking to the people in line. They're like, "You here for the concert?" I was like, "Yeah, I am." And it turns out they're from Texas. They live in South Carolina. They go to the Florida Keys because there's a Red Dirt concert in the Florida Keys every year. Who would have thought? But we get to talking about Red Dirt a little bit while we're waiting to order beers, and then I look over and I recognize like one of the couples that I saw leaving the same parking lot that I parked in is at that same brewery. So I strike up a conversation with them and really hit it off with them. I ended up hanging out with them through the whole concert. Like I got there ahead of them, and the wife had asked for my phone number, so she gave me a call whenever they got to the concert. And so yeah, we hung out through the concert. I had a blast. It was so good. And it was the third time I've seen Whiskey Myers, and Whiskey Myers just they rock it every time. The very first time I saw them, I didn't even know who they were. They were playing a free concert at Colorado State University during the first week of school, and I don't think anyone knew who they were. There was hardly anyone there. It was just a bunch of frat boys trying to like recruit people who showed up. So, um, yeah, I've been a fan of them since like 2012, but they put on such a good concert every time. And Jamie Johnson was cool too. But I, but I am a bigger fan of Whiskey Myers. So that was such a blast. I had a great time there. Talked to some people from South Georgia. Just when you go to a concert by yourself, and when you're drinking, you're social anyway. So it's not that weird. You're a little more inclined to make friends. There was some dude like wearing flip flops and a cowboy hat. Not ironically either. Well, I kept messing with him. The first time I wasn't messing with him though. I was like, "Hey man, your hat's on backwards." And he's like, "Oh, thanks, dude." He flips it around, and I was like, It still looks like it's backwards. I did that like two more times to him throughout the rest of the night. He caught, well, yeah, he caught on to me. But yeah, I had a good time there. And then I slept in the parking lot where that concert took place. Got up early in the morning and then drove up to Fort Jackson for a dental appointment. So yeah, finally got up there. Like stopped at the military campground along the way so I could get a shower in and brush my teeth. Try to make a good impression on the dental hygienist. It didn't work. She lectured me over um, keeping my gums healthy. But from Jackson, I just started driving towards the mountains. Went up towards Spartanburg. Got Jack in the Box. Uh, I ended up staying the night that night at a trailhead somewhere around Tryon, North Carolina, and it was just a short trail on like some conservationist land. But went for that hike, and then after I got done hiking there, I went up and I got a campground out Mount Pisgah campground. So I like bought a tent on my way up there, spent $200 on a 6-person tent, which was pretty nice. It was nice to finally have my own space and to be able to like actually like set my suitcase down and everything. But yeah, went up there, and then the next morning when I got up, I went and hiked like 9.5 miles. I went to the summit of Mount Pisgah, and then I went to Frying Pan Tower. And that tower is climbing that tower was scarier to me than jumping out of an airplane because jumping out of it, yeah, I don't know what it is. When you're in an airplane, you're not afraid of heights. It just doesn't bother you. But climbing this rickety tower and feeling the wind blow you pretty hard, and the stairs sway as you climb up it, and then as you're getting up there, you're not just really high off the ground, you're high above everything because you're up above the mountains, and it's uncomfortable. But I didn't want to just like let my discomfort stop me from doing that because that's that's just kind of how I am. Like, it's not that I'm not afraid of things. I just don't like to let being afraid of things keep me from doing them. So I went on up to the top there and talked to like a mom and a son that were hanging out up there at the top. But it felt pretty good to get back to the ground and to get off that. So yeah, when I got back to the campground, I was pretty glad to be done hiking for the day because it's been a long time since I've put in over 5 miles in one day, and especially carrying a backpack with some stuff in it. So yeah, and then yeah, I got some rest when I got back to the campground, but then I started to get lonely, and I usually I think of myself as being pretty mentally tough, and I don't think of myself as being the type of person who just has to like have somebody else with me all the time to go do things. I think most people they're not going to go out unless they have someone to accompany them. But I I try to fight the urge to just stay in and be reclusive whenever I'm by myself because it's depressing. But loneliness kind of hit me that second night while I was in the campground. So I decided that I was gonna head on down to Southern Pines because I still have some really good friends down there, and and it's about time that I go visit some familiar faces. And that's the thing. I like it doesn't take me very long to start missing Nicole and the kids and to miss family. So I'm pretty thankful that I've got close friends who I could just about consider to be family in places like Southern Pines, North Carolina, and West Cliff, Colorado, and all over the country, to be honest. Whenever I think about if I really had to make my way across the country unassisted, I I know that there's some places I could stop on my way where I could see a familiar face and where there's people who like would look out for me if I needed them to. But yeah, I hit up the Berry family, who are some of the first friends we made when we came to North Carolina because we went to church with them. And Rich was also a police officer in our neighborhood. So when it came time to baptize our kids, they were the only people we even knew in the area. So who better to be godparents to them than Rich and Yvonne? But I went and I stayed with them for a couple nights and got some yard work done with them. We hauled a wood chipper over to their place because they had cut down a whole bunch of trees, and so we took all those trees. I ran chainsaw quite a bit, and uh, and we turned them all into wood chips. But we got through a lot of debris. I was surprised that the pile of wood chips wasn't bigger, but we put a lot of stuff through that wood chipper and burnt a lot of gasoline with it. So I felt good about about the time that I put in with them there. I kind of felt like I made it worthwhile for them to host me. But man, such awesome kids. I'm so excited to see where those Berry kids go in the future because they're they're just raised so well. They are morally grounded, so well behaved, and they have work ethic. And in my family, you like that's how we judge people by their work ethic. And I've known that since I was a small kid. But man, if I can raise my kids to be anything like those Berry kids, I'll be very proud because their oldest, Christine, uh, she's all those kids have worked from the time that they were like 12 or 13 years old. But you know, Christine has grown up to be a very respectable young lady, a college student right now, and she was maybe I think she was 15 whenever we first met her. So yeah, she's like 19 or 20 now. And Lena, exact same thing. She's taking college classes, works really hard, very independent, can support herself, take care of herself. She takes care of her family too. Uh, the second day that I was there, she made an awesome lunch. So man, that yeah, if there's anything to be said, I definitely ate well while I was there because those girls know how to cook. They know how to set a table. Every one of those kids knows how to take care of a household and just how to provide for themselves. That family, they grow so much food on their own in their own backyard. They've got an awesome garden. They collect rainwater, so they've got water to water their gardens with, and plenty of eggs from their chickens. I asked Richie, I was like, how long do you think you guys could just live off of what you have in your yard if something were to happen? And the answer is like they they would make it until it was time to harvest the next crop. You know, just pretty cool. I'm very impressed with the work that Rich and Yvonne have put into those kids. So had a great time in the couple of days that I stayed with them. Betsy's Crepes. If you're ever in Southern Pines, go to Betsy's Crepes. I have a different crepe every time I go there, and they just keep getting better. The last one I had was a samurai, and it's delicious. Some of the best smoked salmon I've ever had, to include the time we went to Alaska, and it comes with wasabi mayo. So order that because it's really good. And yeah, we we got done chipping wood, and then I decided it was time to head on down the road because I definitely wanted to visit the Miner family while I was there too, and just had a blast. It's a nonstop party whenever I go and visit the Miners. We went from you know hanging out at the house to the Hatchet Brewing Company, and then on to um, a winery that made this really good kombucha that is like 10% alcohol. It's dangerous. And I went over and hung out with their friends, Marissa and Arthur. Um, yeah, just and they're really cool people too. That's the thing, I know what kind of company Mike and Molly keep, and they're it's always the type of people that I'm good with hanging out with. So me and Mike, as usual, stayed up watching music videos and just going back and forth and talking about music until like 2:30 in the morning. We stayed up really late. I don't know how it happened. Went through a whole bunch of beer and Johnny Bootlegger, and yeah, it's so much fun hanging out with them. And Evelyn is just this adorable little girl, and their daughter Marcella is just the the most temperate baby that I've been around. She didn't cry the entire time I was there, like over 24 hours. Never heard a whine or a cry, but it was awesome. I'm so blessed to know great people and to have such good friends in the area. And it's also really cool to see like what's happening with Southern Pines and Aberdeen and Pinehurst. I'm afraid it's going to blow up. Uh, it is happening because it's just such a good place to live, but it's more and more people are being drawn to it. Um, yeah. Also met up with my old instructor, Colonel Frank Huffman from ROTC, and because of his current health, like it sounds like his days are kind of numbered right now. So I don't know how much I should talk about that, but the thing is, I definitely want to make sure that you know who who he is. I don't want I want to make sure that my kids know who Colonel Frank Huffman is because he didn't have any kids of his own, and the man lived an incredible life. Had such an appreciation for history and for the men who came before us, and that was something that he and I really share is just a passion for making sure that the stories of the veterans from World War II and Korea and Vietnam that their legacy lives on. And so it's kind of heavy. I met up with him a couple times while I was there, but you know that's somebody who's done so much to try to preserve the legacy of others and to make sure people know um, who the men that have fought for this country are. It matters a lot to me to make sure like that my kids know who that they know about Colonel Frank Huffman and they know about a guy who dedicated most of his life, all the way up until his final days serving his country in in multiple capacities, all the way to retrieving KIAs from Vietnam and Southeast Asia. But anyway, I'm coming up on the end of my time. Kind of a heavy note to end on, but don't take the people in your life for granted. You know, make sure that you always take time and show appreciation to people, and also don't discount um, how much other people might appreciate you because I'm always concerned about myself being a burden upon others, but it don't think it vain of yourself if you think that people might appreciate your presence because it means you're thinking of them, and people like to be thought of. So thanks for listening to this podcast. Tune in to the next one. It's been fun.